Putting My Idol on the Altar by Brian Jacko, Chapter 4, Putting It All Together. I awoke the next morning to the sound of scuffling in my room. I looked for Rainbow Dash, but she was gone. I began to panic and looked across the room. There she was, trying to open a very small box that I had left on my desk. I got out of bed and hurried over to her side. It was a small box that held a piece of jewelry inside. I took it from her hooves and opened it up for her. Inside the box was a gold necklace that my mother had bought for me long ago. On the necklace was a cross with a gemstone in the center of it. The gemstone was my birthstone. It represented the month I was born. Rainbow smiled as she looked at the necklace. "I want to wear this," Rainbow Dash said. I don't know why she wanted to wear this. It was my favorite and only piece of jewelry that I had worn in the past, but I obeyed her wish and took the necklace out of the box. I unlatched the back of it and gracefully put it around her neck. When I was able to hook the back of it, I stood back and looked at her. She was looking down at the necklace and smiling. "Thank you for doing this for me. I want to wear this if it's okay with you." I had no objections, and I actually felt it made her look pretty. I led Rainbow Dash into the kitchen. I scooped her up and raised her close to the top of the refrigerator. I didn't have many cereal options, since I only ate such a select few brands of cereal made by a few companies I trusted, but it was the healthiest and the best cereal I could possibly buy on the market. Rainbow Dash pointed with her hoof at my favorite cereal, Ezekiel 49 cereal with almonds. I put her down and took the box off the top of the refrigerator. Rainbow Dash hopped up into the chair and waited patiently for her breakfast. I opened the refrigerator door and took out some almond milk. I got 2 bowls and filled them up. I also put quite a bit of cinnamon on the cereal because we both enjoyed it. Rainbow Dash began to inhale the cereal and was done in no time. I had to take a bit longer to finish myself, but when I finished, Rainbow Dash was already getting fidgety and wanted to go back out to the woods. I got up when I had finished eating and was getting ready to walk over to the front door. I stopped when I realized Rainbow Dash was walking back to the refrigerator. I assumed she wanted something else to eat, but I was shocked to see her walk right by it and down the stairs to the back door. I followed behind her and watched her go down another set of stairs into the basement. I became very confused and asked, "Rainbow Dash, what are you doing down there?" I did not get an answer from her. It was dark down there and I couldn't see what she was doing. Even though her coat was so very brightly colorful, it sounded as if she had found something and was trying her best to tug at it. I heard a loud crashing sound, and just as I was about to flick the light switch on, I saw her come into view. In her mouth, she had a shovel, and she was struggling to pull it over to me. She placed it down at my feet and said, "This will be part of the mission. We have to take this with us today." I was very confused, but I knew that if I asked any questions, that I'd get the same answer from her. This was getting stranger by the moment. I bent down and picked up the shovel. "How did you know where to find this, Dash?" I asked. Rainbow Dash began to head up the stairs and said, "You leave the door open when we sleep together at night, and I went searching for it. When I realized you were sound asleep, I also found one last important thing for our mission together." I followed closely behind her and watched her walk back into the living room. She walked over to the front door, and leaning against the door was something inside of her bag. She must have found where I kept the bags and put something inside of it. I came closer to her and was about to grab the bag to see what was inside, until she got in my way and said, "No, I will take the bag." I was trying to piece this all together. So wait, Rainbow Dash, you want to take this bag and this big shovel with us to a special spot? This is going to look so strange to the others if they happen to see me. How am I supposed to carry you in my arms with this big shovel? Rainbow Dash reached behind a table and pulled out a carry-on bag. She brought it over and dropped it at my feet. "You can put me inside this. I found it last night." Again, my mind was racing with questions about what we were doing, but I bent down and unzipped the bag. Rainbow Dash picked up the bag she wanted to take with us and walked on top of the carry-on bag. I pulled the sides of the bag over her head, I made sure not to zip the zipper all the way up so that she had plenty of air to breathe. I took a deep breath and opened up the door. I had to look ridiculous with the carry-on bag strapped over my shoulder and a rather large-sized shovel. I saw cars going by my house. Today was Sunday, and that probably meant more people would be outside. I shut my eyes tightly for a moment and said a quick prayer that somehow no one would pull me over and question what I was doing with the carry-on bag and a shovel. As I made my way to our special spot, my heart was racing and I found myself sweating whenever someone looked at me for more than a few seconds. Thankfully, not one person said a word to me and continued on their merry way. I placed the bag down near our little building project and unzipped the bag. Out she came with the mysterious bag that she was holding in her mouth. She walked over and placed it in front of the pile of stones. She then turned around and said, "You need to start digging. Please dig here." Rainbow Dash pawed at the ground and marked the spot where she wanted me to dig. I started to really wonder just what was going on. "Rainbow, I know you told me that I'm not allowed to see until we're finished, but please tell me that whatever it is we are doing is making you happy. Is this truly how you want us to spend our time together?" Rainbow Dash blinked a few times and then smiled. "Yes, this is our mission, and this pleases me." I let out a sigh of relief at the fact that I was making her happy, even though I could not figure it out. Rainbow Dash began to paw at the ground with her hoof again and said, "I need you to dig. I will go out and find some more stones." I walked over and struck my shovel directly into the spot she marked into the ground. "How deep does this need to be, Dash?" I asked. "I'll let you know when to stop," she replied. Rainbow Dash turned and left me. Every now and then I would look over my shoulder to check on her. Most of the time I could see her far off in the distance, but when I couldn't see her, I would panic. She would always end up coming back to our project. She would give me more praise and tell me that I was doing a really good job. When I felt that the hole was big enough, I stopped digging and waited for her to come back. I was overcome with temptation to look inside the bag that was leaning against the pile of stones, but I respected her wish for me not to know until she was ready to tell me. When she did return, I watched her put another stone on top of the pile. "Dash, is this enough?" I asked. Rainbow trotted over and looked into the hole. She nodded her head and said, "It's fine. Thank you for doing this. We need to add one more stone, and I'd like for you to be the one who adds it." I looked over to the pile, and there was just one stone that could be added on top to make it look balanced. Rainbow Dash led the way deep into the woods, and we found our last stone together by a stream. "I want you to carry it," Rainbow Dash said. "I also want you to carry me back to a special spot." I took the stone and put it into my pocket. I then bent down and scooped her up in my arms. I couldn't even begin to describe the sheer amount of happiness I was experiencing to have her back in my arms. This creature meant the world to me. She leaned her head against my shoulders and wrapped her front legs around my neck. I walked back with her to a special spot and whispered in her ear, "Okay, Dash, we are here. Are you sure you want me to be the one who puts the last stone in place?" "Yes, I want you to do it," she replied. I walked closer to the pile of stones and reached into my pocket with one hand as I cradled her in my other arm. I carefully placed the stone on the one spot that needed to be filled. "Okay, Rainbow, it's all finished. What do we do now?" "Put me on top of it," she said. I put my other hand under her and gently placed her on top. Rainbow Dash looked up at me and said, "I want you to take off my necklace and keep it as a reminder of me." My mind began to race with questions, as I didn't even know what she meant by that. "Dash, what does that mean? You're not going anywhere, are you?" Rainbow Dash didn't answer my question. "Take the necklace off me," she said. My hands were quivering with fear, and I had a hard time unlatching the hook because of how hard my hands were shaking. The thought of her possibly leaving me terrified me. I now stood there with the necklace in my hand. "Put it around your neck. I want you to wear it," she said. It was difficult for me because I was so shaky, but I did manage to put the necklace around my neck and hook the end of it behind my neck. Rainbow Dash looked down at the bag that was leaning against what now looked like some kind of small table that she was standing on top of. You may take out what I put inside the bag for you now. Your eyes will now be opened, and you will know what to do. I reached inside the bag, and to my horror, it was the sharpest kitchen knife that I had. It all made sense now, and a wave of dread and fear overtook my mind. I dropped the knife to the ground, and my whole body began to shake violently. I fell to my knees before her and put my head in my hands in great distress. I let out an agonizing moan and started to sob heavily. I felt Rainbow Dash put her hoof on my shoulder. I rose back up and wrapped my arms around her little body and kissed her colorful mane on top of her head. I can't do it. You want me to sacrifice you, don't you? I would lose my mind if I had to take your life. Please, Rainbow Dash, why are you having me do this? Do you know that you mean everything to me? Rainbow Dash somehow broke free from my hug, and she used her front hoof to wipe the tears away from my eyes. That's where you went wrong. I mean the world to you, and I replaced the very most important thing in life. You were unknowingly worshipping me, and you lost focus of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. God tried to admonish you about the dangers of idol worship through other people, but you refused to listen, and you isolated yourself from others. God decided to get a little more creative and create me to lead you back to Him. He has greater plans for you, and you are wasting so much of your time being alone and watching My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episodes. You forgot that you were created for community. You were tired of religious wars and corruption, and you thought you found the ultimate escape when it came to love and acceptance, but you seem to have forgotten that bronies and Pegasisters fight a lot. And if some of them had access to weapons and met face to face, there'll be bloodshed, even though this show is all about love and friendship. This fandom has become like a cult following, and it is dangerous. They argue about the most stupid things, like what rainbow represents in the show. They've forgotten that the rainbow has and will always represent God's loving promise to man. They try to sexually corrupt my character and make me out to be a lesbian, like how they want all the other ponies in the show to be like that too, and draw nasty pornographic pictures of me and post them on the internet. They don't realize that there is no true peace without the love in Christ. You gave your life to Christ a long time ago, and you have forgotten much about Him. You were living your life for me and not God, and it was hurting you so much even though you didn't realize it. The whole purpose of me existing here is to lead you back to Him and to rekindle a hurt relationship. Please, pick up the knife and do the deed. I bent down and picked up the knife. My hands were quivering and shaking so hard with fear. I had seen enough movies and played enough video games to get the idea of how to slice a throat, but there was no way I understood how to apply it in real life. This wasn't a movie or a video game. I didn't simply press a button on a game controller or click a computer mouse button to make a pixelated imaginary character to do something, and I never had any desire to kill or destroy anything in real life. My trembling hands put the knife to her throat. Rainbow Dash, I have no idea how to kill, and I don't even know if this is the right part of your throat that I need to slit. Rainbow Dash looked down at the knife and then looked up at me. The positioning is fine. Just do it now. I accidentally dropped the knife because I was so shaky and upset. I can't do it, Rainbow. I just can't, I said. If you truly love me, then you will let me go. My whole purpose here is to help you rebuild a relationship with our Creator, she said. But how much will this hurt you, Rainbow? I can't bear to see you suffer. It will be quick, she replied. I want you to think about the suffering of Christ on the cross, and I want you to know how much it hurt God when He wanted to show you love and you blocked Him out with me. More tears filled my eyes when I focused on the work and love of Christ. I was still panicking though, and was thinking about Rainbow Dash. Will I be able to see you again? Will you be in heaven with me when my time comes to leave this earth? I asked. That is not important for you to know because you would end up living for me again. I cannot tell you. You will just have to wait and see. Focus on Christ from now on. Please, the longer you wait to do this, the more difficult it will be for you. I closed my eyes shut tightly for a moment, and then picked up the knife. I placed it exactly the same spot I had before. Just before I was about to pull through with the deed, I felt something grab my hand, and I heard a voice I hadn't heard before say, "Stop!" I opened my eyes and looked down at the knife. There was another hand on top of my hand. I stared at the hand for a moment because there was something so difficult about it, and I couldn't take my eyes off the scar on the hand. I heard the voice from behind me call my name, and I slowly turned around. When I saw this man, I instantly fell prone to the ground and dropped the knife. I didn't know who he was because I had never seen him before, but my spirit was telling me that he is the Son of God. There was something so powerful about his image that I could not pick my head up and look at him. He called my name again and said, "Do not be afraid." I slowly picked up my head and looked at him once more. I didn't have to ask who it was. I knew deep down inside who this man was, even though I had never seen him before. I tried to speak, but no words came out of my mouth. Jesus raised his arm and opened up my hand and said, "Rainbow Dash, come here." Rainbow Dash instantly hopped off the altar and stood by the side of Jesus. Jesus bent down by me and picked up the knife that I had dropped. He reached out his other hand and grabbed my wrist and gently pulled my hand out. He put the knife back in my hand and said, "Rainbow Dash will not be sacrificed." I got down low and thanked him so many times. Jesus called my name again. I picked my head up and watched him walk over to the altar. He looked down at me for a moment and then stood on top of it. "You will sacrifice me instead." My mouth hung open and my body began to shake crazily. I almost dropped the knife several times. You want me to kill you?" I asked. "Yes, I am the ultimate sacrifice for sin." I stayed there on my knees and couldn't move. "Come," Jesus said. "Slice my throat instead of slicing Rainbow Dash's throat." I didn't want to move at all, but yet I somehow managed to raise my feet and walk over to the altar. "Come, stand on top and sacrifice me," Jesus said. I slowly stood on top of the altar and was next to his side. Jesus Christ kneeled down and said, "Take my life instead." I came a bit closer and put the knife to his throat. I paused for a moment and watched my hand tremble. "Do it," Jesus commanded. It was almost as his words forced me to pull through with the action. I put some pressure on his throat with the knife and pulled it across his throat. The blood gushed out of his throat and he fell down quickly. I looked down at the knife and there was blood on it, as well as on my hand. Fear and dread took over my mind. I dropped the knife and I ran through the woods at full speed. I didn't know where I was going. I just had to get away. I had murdered the ultimate man of peace, who is God in the flesh. I continued to run through the woods and was nearing the edge of it, when suddenly a light had shined so brightly in front of my eyes, and a voice spoke to me. "Stop!" the voice commanded. I felt as if the Holy Spirit forced me down on my knees. I knew the voice that was speaking to me was God the Father. "What do you want with me? I just killed Jesus!" I raised my blooded hand to the sky. "Look what I did!" I cried out. Father God spoke back to me and said, "I sent him to you, just like I sent Rainbow Dash to you as well." "I don't understand what is going on," I said. A voice coming from behind me called my name. I turned around and saw Jesus Christ standing there, cradling Rainbow Dash in his arms. He got down low with me on the ground and shifted Rainbow Dash into one side of his arm. He reached out his hand and touched the side of my face. "You have kept Rainbow Dash as your idol for a very long time. You have great passion for this show, but you had let it get in the way of your relationship with me. I'm not taking your passion away from you, but I will change what you love for the better. You will be my shining light for this fandom of people." Jesus took his hand off my face and then kissed the side of my cheek. He stared lovingly into my eyes for a moment. He then stood up and said his final words before ascending into the heavens. "Peace be with you." I shot up out of bed and put my hand to my chest. My heart was beating so fast. I looked around my bedroom and I realized that this was all a dream. I very rarely dream. Nothing has ever been so vivid and real to me. I instantly walked over and turned my computer on and put my hands to my forehead and couldn't stop thinking about what had happened in my dream. I went online and noticed that someone had sent me a message. It was from one of my Christian friends who gave much opposition to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. I opened it up and there was a message telling me that he became a brony and he saw an episode that he thought was incredible. He also sent me a picture that was related to the episode that he saw. It was a picture of Princess Luna and the joke about her dream-weaving powers. The timing of such a thing was unreal. I totally believe that God truly had visited me inside this dream, and I got on my knees and prayed. Jesus told me in my dream that he wanted me to be a shining light in this fandom, and I had no idea what he wanted me to do to be that shining light. But I humbly asked for his help to give me ideas, if in fact this was his will for me. I finished my prayer and went into the kitchen to eat breakfast. As I was eating, I became struck with new ideas to tell stories that seemed to come from out of nowhere. I was never known for creativity, and I really had no desire to write before. I made some mental notes in my head as I had finished breakfast and then went back to my computer. I suddenly began to remember scriptures and I applied them to many story ideas as I typed them out. Not every story I made could be considered Christian, but I tried my best to apply Christian principle or theme to many of them when I felt like it could fit. Now that God was the focus of my life, I began to enjoy My Little Pony Friendship is Magic even more than I did before. I would find things that happen in the show that I would think of scripture that relates to what happens in the stories. I could see the love of God in the show now, and I could practically feel his love for me through this cartoon. All this made the experience that much more enjoyable. I still have my plushie dolls, figurines, and many other collections in my room. I took my Bible and put it directly in the center of my massive pony merchandise collection. I then took my Rainbow Dash plushie doll and placed her front legs on top of the Bible as if to remind me about that dream to write stories. Even though My Little Pony Friendship is Magic used to be in control of my life, I now had a new mission, and I would do my best to fulfill it, as best as I possibly could. I made more of an effort to visit friends, and I wasn't as much as a recluse as I once was. I shared the joy of Christ and his free gift of salvation as much as I could, and even tried to reach out to others by making a special creation through one of my most favorite video games of all time. I continue to live out the rest of my life and try my best to continue to write in my spare time.